You're listening to New Youth Radio, a show about global culture and local youth.
Through my eyes I can see a shooting star weaving its way across the sea. Somewhere from Mars, it's down the street we would run, scratch our names in the park, young and free in the sun. Wheels upon the tire, I said you do, I said you do, I said you do, I said you do. Wish I had a mango tree in my backyard with you standing next to me. Take the picture, 'cause from her lips I heard her say, can I have you? Caught up in what they say, I said you do, I said you do, I said you do, I said you do, I said you do.
Today we're going to hear from a young writer-photographer whose journey took her from Vietnam to the Greater Toronto Area and then to the Great Barrier Reef in Australia.
Hi, my name's Maria Nguyen. I was born in Vietnam and I moved to Canada when I was about 13 years old. We settled in Mississauga near Toronto for about 14-15 years before I moved away, and I'm now settled in Australia. Canada was a totally free country with so much to offer. I think as a family we collectively left behind a very difficult sort of situation to live in after the war. You know, the communist regime was tough, not just on adults, but even as kids going to school, you could see you weren't learning so much, and so we were taught to look elsewhere, you know, for answers, and so we were really looking forward to going to school in a first world country, and our attitude was, we wanted to be here. We were excited to go to school. The social environment that we were caught in, was, I guess, typical of a lot of immigrant experience. We got made fun of a lot for our inability to express ourselves in English. We looked different. We didn't have the same clothes and all that stuff. But I think it was it's a blessing in disguise to have that experience, because it taught me to be stronger and more motivated to, succeed, to find my space in a new country. I think I came at the right time because, I started high school fresh, and I'd had that 1 year buffer to learn about Canadian culture. So I adapted fairly well into the high school environment, and I did well in school. I don't think my sisters did as well because their English wasn't as good, and they didn't have the same kind of, social experience. But yeah, I think I did well, and it prepared me.
For many young people, life after high school is a big unknown, and sometimes the decision is not always one's own. I wanted to know from Maria how she found her voice as a writer and why she decided to make journalism her career, and then how she found her passion for photography.
I wanted to be, I don't know why, but I wanted to be a journalist. I think that was, my best friend's dream, so I thought it was cool to have the same dream. I didn't know that that's actually what I really wanted to do, and then I wanted to be a photographer, so I started taking classes, and then an English teacher told me that I should, when I grow up, I should definitely do something in writing, because I had the ability to write and express myself really well. And that came as a shock because I'd just become fluent in the language. And that sort of stayed in the back of my mind for a long time. And I went on to university to pursue creative writing and psychology. And then after that, I did journalism. The experience I had as a kid in a working class, in a very, very big city in Vietnam, and just the way we were brought up really influenced me in the way I experienced this, my second home. I became quite aware that, we came from a family that didn't have much, but we did so much with what we had. We were taught to, fight against all kind of social injustices, and I think I became almost hyper aware of problems. And I wrote a lot about kids making fun of me when I was in high school, and the boat people experience. That was my family experience. That's how my relatives came over to Canada, and how my dad spent quite a number of years trying to escape the country, and being jailed for it for a long period of time. I wrote about all that. I think I guess my experience living in two entirely different spaces really helped shape what I wrote about. And I've always had a strong interest in nonfiction as opposed to writing fiction, because I couldn't imagine, making up anything. There was so much for me to write about, about what was around me. I wanted to be a photographer for a really long time, because we've always had National Geographic magazines brought to Vietnam by, friends or colleagues of my dad. So from a young age, I always thought I would travel the world and take pictures of whales and, native people in different countries, and I had all these crazy dreams. But my parents coming to Canada at that time, when all their kids were growing up and going to school to learn a trade, they advised us, I guess, to go with a safer route, and to learn something that could earn us a job after we finished, because they didn't want us to end up like them, struggling. So in the end, I never pursued it professionally. But I guess when it's your passion, you tend to go back to it when things aren't going right, or when you find yourself bored at a job, like any job you take. And that's kind of the answer that you keep coming back to. So I guess a few years after I became a journalist, and things in Australia are a little bit differently. I live in a small town in Australia now, and journalism isn't as quite what I imagined it would be. And I decided to open my own business as a wedding and portrait photographer.
It seems that as much as you sometimes try to be practical and plan out your life, there are going to be those spur-of-the-moment decisions and chance encounters that suddenly change the course of your life. Here's how Maria found herself living in a very unique part of the world where wallabies and crocs are common backyard sightings.
As I was graduating from university, there was a career fair at University of Toronto, and I decided to go, one morning, and this Japanese exchange and teaching program was there as one of the vendors, and I decided to have a chat with them and took the application home. And after a couple of hours of thinking, I thought, yep, I'm going to Japan. I'm going to teach English after I graduate. And I got in, and I left Canada, and I ended up teaching English in Japan for 2 years. And I met my partner there. He was from Australia, teaching in the same province, in the same prefecture. And so we met and moved back to Canada together. And then it was too cold for, an Aussie to take, I guess. It was a different lifestyle. My husband came from a surfing and traveling sort of, environment. They live in the outdoors, and, it was cold in Canada for eight months a year. So we thought we'd move to Australia to find it, to try and settle down.
You're sailing past the window. My father said, now son, don't help me out. You're sailing past the window. My father said, now son, don't help me out. And now he's crying out for love. And now he's working up from above. He's sailing past the window. My father said, now son, don't help me out. He's sailing past the window. My father said, now son, don't help me out. And now he's crying out for love. And now he's working up from above. Bum, 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 dum, 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 dum,
Coming to Canada as a young teen is never easy. I wanted to know from Maria how her multiple migrations have shaped her.
When we found out that we were moving to Canada, that was probably the most difficult thing that I ever had to do, was leaving my home country and all my family to go to this faraway place. And it took me probably a few years to come to terms with it. And I remember being really resistant to any kind of change after that until probably near the end of high school. And then I realized, as I was moving to Japan and then finding myself in Japan for the first time, and really embracing the opportunity and the freedom and the experience of being an outsider. I think that's when I really started appreciating my experience as a Canadian, because I think a lot of Canadians come in to the country really feeling like an outsider, but that becomes our condition, and that we actually find ourselves kind of, assimilating and being a part of the country, but still retaining a sense of ourselves. From being in different countries, I've realized that Canadians really pride themselves on having a second language, speaking a second language at home, eating a different kind of food. And that's us, that's being Canadian. And I think after moving around and loving that experience and moving to Australia again, it becomes almost like, that's my experience. That's my way of interacting with the global sort of environment. I love being an outsider, learning to adapt to a new environment. I think when I go to, when people ask, who are you? I always say, I'm Vietnamese, or I'm Canadian, or Vietnamese Canadian. And I guess Canada has really given me that identity and that strength of, you can be in any place, any space in the world and still be your own person, and embracing multiculturalism, different kinds of food, different kinds of people. And that's us. And a lot of Australians don't have that, despite being, a multicultural country themselves.
Multiculturalism is the buzzword in countries such as Canada and Australia, two countries with high immigration rates. Is there a difference, though, in the lived experience of being an immigrant in these countries?
Well, Canada is definitely a lot more accepting of diversity than Australia. But then again, it might be, my opinion might be biased by, being in a smaller city. I can't really explain how we are. I just know that we are a lot more accepting in the way we speak to each other, in the way that you don't look at, a bilingual or bicultural couple and think, oh, this person married the other person to be in the country, or the Caucasian partner is better than the other. We don't ever kind of have that kind of thought. We just look and accept. We don't have a second look. When I moved to Australia, it was during the GFC, so it was really hard for anyone to look for a job. But going into a small town that basically looked at anyone with a different sort of background or last name as they're another backpacker traveling through, it was impossible to get a job. So I ended up volunteering at my husband's school. He's a school teacher. And the school, taught mostly to Indigenous kids. And I ended up volunteering there a couple of times a week as a journalism mentor, because a few kids in the school were interested in writing and in making a magazine, but they didn't quite know how. And also the school was nice enough to know that we were stuck in a small town, and my husband's partner was, bored to tears and needed something to do. So they basically created a position for me. And so I ended up teaching them how to write, how to put together a magazine, teaching them how to do layout, with Microsoft Publisher, taking pictures. And then, within the first issue that we had, took forever. We had a 4-week deadline, but by the 4th week, the kids still didn't know what they were doing. I think they were year 9s. But by the end of the year, by term 4, they could actually sit by themselves and create this, like the first and only yearbook for the school. And it was quite an amazing experience to see these kids, because they come from such a different socio-economic background, with low literacy and low numeracy skills, to be so, focused and successful in doing something that they weren't familiar with. And it was I guess my way of contributing.
The reality of today's world means that young people will most likely have many jobs, some quite unrelated, and will require a vast array of skills. Maria's path took her towards online journalism, then finding new ways of expressing her creativity, and ultimately finding her joy in photography.
My way now of expressing myself is through photography, even though it is, paid commercial photography. I guess my background being a writer has helped me develop my own style, and having a different goal, I guess, and how I photograph people. And also I've decided, or I guess by chance, I've sort of immersed myself in doing in organizing not-for-profit events on the side, I guess whenever I can, because last year when the tsunami happened in Japan, it really affected me and my friends who used to spent a lot of time teaching in Japan, and my best friend actually taught English in a town the town, I think 1/3 of the population was wiped out, and she lost a few friends, and that I was the person that broke it to her from the newsroom, and I thought that I had to do something about it to help a country that sort of gave me so much, like my first stepping stone as an adult. And so I ended up organizing a huge fundraiser for Red Cross, and I put together like an all-day festival, with all sorts of Japanese martial arts and music, and so many vendors came, to volunteer and shared their Japanese culture with the whole city of Cairns. And that was sort of the beginning of kind of my journey. I realized that there are so many other ways to help, to get your voice out there and to play around with arts and culture and to share it. I enjoy making online documentaries. It allows you to tell a story in non-linear format. It's different than radio or magazine or newspaper in the fact that it kind of combines all of the above into one medium. And you see now that everybody reads the newspaper online and on their iPad, and I think the audience now needs so much more than just text or than traditional media to sort of interact with news. But moving away from that, I still enjoy making documentaries, and that is sort of a long-term goal, to find a team of like-minded people and making documentaries about Australian culture or whatnot. I'm not really sure where it's going to go, but I've put my thought out there, and I've met a few people. But in the meantime, I enjoy blogging about my photography on my website. It's a good way of, telling stories, and it's not about me, it's about my clients, it's about people I take pictures of, and they're not just, people who are paying me money to take a family photograph, but when you spend an hour with a family, you learn all about, their history, where they met, how they fell in love, and what their kids are like, and then you spend a day taking pictures of someone's wedding, you learn about two families and how they interact, and more love stories. And I find it's just another way of telling a story.
Thanks, Maria, for sharing your journey with us. You can see Maria's work and connect with her through her website at www.zenphotography.com.au. On today's show, we heard from Brisbane-based sibling duo Angus and Julia Stone with their track Mango Tree, and also another Queensland-based singer-songwriter, Thelma Plum. And Thelma's diverse cultural background of Indigenous, Australian and Brazilian heritage has shaped her worldview and has provided much inspiration for her work. And now we'll close with Samantha Crane and her track Santa Fe. She is also a young American songwriter, musician and singer from Shawnee, Oklahoma.
Train all day, wait and get a drop of wine to taste. Everybody moving around that place like bees in a hive, like someone famous died. We finally found our common ground. Eyes of rain was coming down. All your paintings black and mouse, they didn't make a sound. But we got found out, and I'm heading out of Santa Fe. I look back, then I look away, away like that blue sky fades. Feels like I'm running away. Babe, I know you know, just 'cause I'm back on the road, it don't mean your face don't show in all my dreams. Oh, I'll be back for you. same fade. I look back, then I look away, away that blue sky fades. Feels like I'm running away. Babe, I know you see just how hard it is for me to unpack my clothes and shoes and stay right here with you. I don't know how to. It's a hard day, and it's a hard night, and I can't find a way to make it right. So I'm heading back to Santa Fe. I look back, then I look away, away that blue sky fades. Feels like I'm running away. Babe, I know you see just how hard it is for me to unpack my clothes and